Track your way to success. How you can successfully change all kinds of things in your life simply by tracking what you're doing.
All right, so we're going to talk about this because we love, I think it was Tim Ferriss who said,
he's the one I heard,
if you track it, if you measure it, you can improve it or something to that.
Yes, and he said, fail to track it. No,
what gets measured,
track it or fail.
Yeah, track it or fail, and what gets measured gets improved. And Mike and I have been thinking a lot about this. There are things that we track. There are things that we probably should track. There are things that all of you should probably be thinking about. You know what? Tracking this might be a good idea. And that's what we really want to talk about in this video. So first of all, when you track something, you get clarity on it.
Yes, it brings your focus to bear on it. And it's not, I gained a few pounds, so I'm a bit heavy. And then when you start tracking, you realize you've gained 18 pounds.
Yeah, you get clarity on anything, but also I want you to bring up the reticular activating system. We've talked about this before, that your reticular activating system is useful and you want to aim it at an outcome.
Right. Your reticular activating system is what you notice, the reticule, like the eye of your mind. And when we focus intently on something, we get the attention of the unconscious and it begins bringing things to our conscious awareness based on what the RAS is looking for. So if you start thinking, oh, my new hobby is, curling. I just love curling. I'm just reading it everywhere you go. You'll start seeing curling books on a shelf at someone's house or a curling stone by someone's fireplace because your brain is now looking for that stuff unconsciously, noticing things in the periphery and bringing them to your conscious awareness. So you're getting clarity on this right away.
Right. And by tracking it, you're giving yourself an opportunity to re-aim your reticular activating system on the thing that you want, the outcome that you want, which is really cool, right? So maybe the first thing that we can invite all of you listening, watching to do is to figure out what is one area of your life that you want to improve, and then how would you track it? Do you track anything at all? If you track it, should it be tracked? Is there something missing? Because we're going to come back to this.
Interesting. Well, yeah, and obviously the one example that jumps out right away is weight. Now, in my own case, I had years ago ballooned up to 190 pounds, which is way too much on my frame. But now I keep my weight under 160, and one of the simplest things is I do it just by tracking it. And our friend Deb, she's in her 70s and is still a triathlete. I mean, insanely fit. She walks to town and back, which is 6 miles each way, bringing groceries. So she said to me, track your weight every day. People say not to. She said, do it.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Tim Ferriss talked about a guy who was tracking his weight. He made no conscious changes in his life. But here's the RAS at work again. Just by tracking his weight, he was making unconscious decisions that he didn't even know about. And his weight started dropping.
Right. By tracking it, your RAS is aimed at it. And even if you don't consciously intervene, you're quite likely to make unconscious decisions, especially something like weight, where you say, okay, I'm going to track my weight. I identify as a thinner person. Well, unconsciously, you're programming yourself to maybe make better food choices, maybe exercise a little bit more, get some better quality sleep.
Maybe not eat as much.
Right, that kind of stuff. So that's one thing you're tracking. I'm tracking that as well. Another one in our lives is I know that we both track for strength training. You were talking about pull-ups, for example. How many reps can you do? Or how much weight can I lift in a particular exercise? Or if I'm doing stretching, how close to the ground can I come in this particular pancake stretch or whatever the case may be?
Right, and you're checking it, so you're always looking for the improvement, or can we call it the disimprovement?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you go the wrong way.
And I like the line you gave, Chris. You said no tracking is like driving a car with no speedometer and no map.
That's a very good point.
Wondering where you wind up.
I'm going somewhere. Where am I going? How fast are you getting there? I don't know.
Do you want to be there? Well, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. So no speedometer, no map. That's what it's like if you kind of say, I want a thing, I want this thing, but you don't actually do anything to track it. So tracking is a really good idea. Let's do a few. Here's what we're going to do for the rest of this video. Man, I'm speaking weird. Here's what we're going to do for the rest of this video. We're going to go through some real life examples. Then we're going to talk about how to, and then we'll address some of the common obstacles, and we'll leave you with a call to action, including to use the community to talk about this stuff. So, all right, real life examples. So we've started to talk already a bit about the health and fitness just in our own personal, but if you have some health and fitness goals, you might think things like, what do you weigh? In our Wellness Academy, we often talk about weight, waist, and the triple W, whatever. So measuring your weight is one thing, but your waist is, as Dr. Ted Nyman calls it, like literally the cheapest thing that you can measure that is a good indication of health and fitness.
No, it's interesting.
So your waist size.
You don't have to go for expensive tests or anything, right?
Weigh yourself. check your waist. And the third W should be whatever else for you. It could be how my arms feel in the sleeves. You know, the saggy triceps are shrinking, or I like the way my pecs feel in this t-shirt now. Could be anything like that. So track that kind of stuff. Those are things you can track in health and fitness. What about nutrition, Mike?
Well, yeah, that's one of the key things as well. How many years ago we talked about this thing, Chris, that if it's not in your house, you can't eat it. And so one of the first things I did was get stuff out of the house that was problematic, but you can't get every corn chip out all the time. Life should still have some fun, but you have to track it. You have to track how much am I eating and what response am I getting from
you could, I mean, you could track something as simple as how often in a week you permit yourself to have something off your normal menu. Another thing you could do is we both do what we call intermittent fasting. Well, not we call. We didn't make up the term. But intermittent fasting, or the idea of a compressed eating window. We typically don't eat. Are you still one meal a day, or are you mostly
I do OMAD one meal a day, twice a week.
Okay.
The rest of the time, I'm eating a big lunch and a big supper.
I start my eating usually around noon, right? Which for us is in about 15 minutes. So we're going to go out and eat lunch after this. Lunch off, as we say.
Yeah,
so
eat off.
You might measure what your eating window is. That's another thing you could measure. I eat between noon and 8. Okay. And you could even measure, get really meta about it. How often am I hitting that goal? If my goal is to be 12 to 8 p.m.
Right.
Or 12 to 6 p.m., how often am I hitting that? Right? Write it down. Track it.
And doing the OMAD one meal a day, I'm eating in a 1 hour window.
Yeah.
So 23 hours a day I'm fasting, but in that 1 hour window, I can eat pretty well whatever I want, provided I'm getting sufficient protein first.
Yeah. Some people get a little extreme. I'm not going to say it's extreme, but some people go towards a more extreme things like
some people want faster results.
How many grams of carbohydrates am I eating in a particular day? Now, if that matters to you, maybe measure it. But if it doesn't matter to you, don't just say, well, Chris mentioned it, I have to measure it. No.
How many Dunkin' Donuts am I eating in a given day?
Okay, let's talk about, I'll mention really quickly the business side of things because, well, we run a business. I'm the CEO of the business. So I'm tracking things like how many new leads do we get in our business? How many sales are we generating on a daily basis, weekly basis? How much are we spending on ads, and are those ads performing? Those are things. So we measure those things. Every intelligent business measures stuff, duh. So how can we translate that down to our own businesses? Or if you treat your life like you're the CEO of your own life, there's a nice metaphor for you. I
freaking love that. It's amazing.
So as the CEO of your own life, you should be measuring things. If you do run an actual business, I'll just also mention that we run the Hypnosis Mastermind. You should all be taking a look at that. Just go to Hypnosis.com or message us in the community and we'll tell you more about it.
And it's PYKTHOS.
That's exactly it.
Pick those.
Pick those. Yeah, but it's a fake, made up, fake Greek word, which is hilarious. But we do run a mastermind where we can help you with your business if you care about the business side of things at all. So that's that. What about personal stuff, Mike?
Well, for me, a big one is tracking hours of sleep because I used to sleep until 9:30 because I'd be going to bed late when I was doing a lot of hypnosis shows, driving home late at night on a high from, standing ovation night after night after night after night. Anyway, so I started tracking my sleep and I realized since we got our Egyptian Mao 10 years ago, it took him 2 years to turn me around. But now I wake up before 6 o'clock every morning.
Which means you're going to bed earlier.
I'm going to bed by 10.
Yeah.
I'm sleeping, but I'm tracking. Am I getting at least 7 to 8 hours? 7 I can get by on now. I didn't used to be able to. It used to be like 9.
Yeah.
But tracking it, making sure, am I getting enough sleep? If I'm not giving my system a time to recover, a chance to recover after workouts or whatever, if I'm not tracking the details, things can go off the rails.
Yeah, another one would be meditation or self-hypnosis. So even if you're not that you have to track the minutes necessarily, you could, but you could simply track, did I do hypnosis, the self-hypnosis? Today. Yeah. Remember years ago we on the podcast talked about Jerry Seinfeld's Maintain the Chain. Jerry Seinfeld got good at writing comedy by writing comedy every day. And so we turned this into an expression, maintain the chain.
Putting a new link on every day.
Just build it. So you would then with your workouts just make a tally mark. I worked out today.
Yep.
I worked out today, maintain the chain. You could do the same thing with self-hypnosis sessions.
Another thing too, it's our piano teacher told us, he said, just play even 10 minutes a day. He said, aim for half an hour if you can, or an hour.
Maintain
but he
the
said,
chain.
even 10 minutes a day. He said, learning piano is an ongoing battle with your memory.
Yeah.
And but we've noticed, like now, I was going through the book, I'll play that now, I'll play White Christmas, whatever it is, because I'm maintaining the chain with that. Just
Exactly.
noticing.
All right, now, finally, we're going to have to wrap this video up. Man, longer than we expected, but here's where we're going. So you could also do this with financial, so measuring things like how much you're spending, budget, how much you're saving, how much are you investing, and maybe even the investing performance. These are all things that are worthy of considering at least to measure. And then finally here, we have things like projects. Well, how do you measure a project? Maybe in terms of a checkbox of the things that are the elements, the subcomponents of the project. Checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. So those are things to do. Now, we're going to move into how to do this, and then we're going to challenge you. All right. So
well, first, you got to pick something you want to track in the first place.
So that's what we challenge you to do. Decide something that you are going to start tracking. Literally decide it right now. Pause the video if you have to, and then resume it. But make a decision. Next would be, how are you going to track it?
Right. You can use an app. You can use a spreadsheet. You're just going to make notes on a piece of paper.
We're all
your
adults.
Computer.
Yeah, we're all adults. Figure it out. But yeah, spreadsheet, app, pen and paper, old school. I like the old school method too. They're great. So decide the final thing, or not final, the next step. Decide when you'll track it. So you want to build it a habit, right? When are you going to do this? So for example, I weigh myself first thing in the morning. That's when I track it.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing I imagine for you. Most people
pretty much, yeah.
That way. So,
actually, if I'm fasting, I weigh myself just before supper.
Perfect.
Because then I've got it at its lowest weight for the day.
Yeah, that's great. So decide when you're going to track it. Then, you know what would be a good idea? Get into the community and announce it. Take some ownership of it, because when you do that, you tend to actually perform better. So mention, hey, this is what I'm going to be tracking. This is when, this is how, this is my outcome.
You're bringing in the consistency principle.
Right.
You made a public declaration on it, and you will then honor it.
Now,
look, idiotic computer.
Now, check this out. To involve your reticular activating system, since, as we brought up earlier, you're going to be tracking it anyway, which will fire off that RAS towards it. Why not, when you track it, vividly imagine your success, your future success. Just imagine that you're making stepping stone progress, and then celebrate those small successes.
The victories. This is really good, because say you lose your first 2 pounds, or you get $1,000 saved in the bank that you didn't think you were going to save. Tell somebody about it. I got $1,000 in the bank and I'm 2 pounds light.
How are you planning on losing that?
Yeah.
How are you planning on gambling it away? Right.
That's the thing. Celebrate your little victories, because they will keep the momentum going, and that's a crucial part of this.
All right, we got
obstacles.
Yeah, so three just common obstacles that people can run into. The first obstacle would be people saying, "Well, I really don't have time to track this." It only takes you like 30 seconds.
Good point.
To figure it out, right? Everyone can find 30 seconds to track something that matters. What about when people say, "Well, I'm just not seeing the results fast enough. It's disappointing"?
Well, when you're tracking it, you can then bring in the power of compounding. What other things can you add to this, to your tracking, that will increase the results exponentially?
Yeah, and celebrate the small wins too. You're not going to see you don't become a millionaire overnight unless you win the lottery or an inheritance or something, but you build up the wealth slowly through compound investing and
the
compound returns, right? So celebrate your little success. So that's, if you don't see results coming fast enough, realize you got to set a realistic goal here. And then finally, what if you forget? What if you go, "Oh, I was in the habit, I was tracking it, and I forgot."
Get back on the wagon.
That's it.
Keep going. Don't beat yourself up. Just next. Get back.
Start rebuilding the chain. Maintain that chain.
Weld a new link.
So that's basically it. I think we can end it here and say, pick the thing that you're going to track.
Tell us.
And tell us about it in the community. Tell everyone in the community, because that's how we all get better. All right.
That's right.
We'll see you in the next video.
We will.
Thanks once again, and good night.